Hi, good morning. We're out in the garden with Mr. Spencer. We didn't bring Millie out today because she was a little flat yesterday. She didn't do well with the heat, but it's looking to me like Spencer wants to go in and be in the air conditioning too. We're only gonna be here out. Today's a shorty, okay, Spence? So we're gonna make it go on over to the table, and I've got our bouquets that we picked yesterday because we're going to use them today for some dissection activities.
Dissecting is when we purposefully cut something up in order to study its parts.
So our story today is called Flower, Why Do You Smell So Nice? And this one's sort of a funny one because this is a story of a bee who talks to a flower. It's by Francesca Grazzini, and it's illustrated by Chiara Carrer. So we've got Flower. Why do you smell so nice? It is a beautiful day for a walk. All the colors. And what is that nice smell? Flower, why do you smell so nice? And the flower answers, why, to attract bees like you. Would you have paid attention to my petals if I didn't have this beautiful color and wonderful smell? Oh, no, it is true. I wouldn't have noticed you. Flowers are so beautiful because we want bees and butterflies and wasps and hornets to come and see us. Once, many years ago, when the dinosaurs were still alive, flowers didn't exist. Back then, there were no flowers on Earth. Really? I can't believe that. Oh, yes, and after many years, plants began to grow colorful leaves here and there. The colorful leaves were different than their regular leaves. Those were called petals. Petals are what make up flowers. Really? Then what happens? Well, insects and birds visited the little plants with the colorful flowers. At first, they were just attracted to the flowers' colors, but when they got closer, they loved the flower's smell too. They liked the flowers so much they would stick their faces or beaks, sometimes even their whole bodies, right into the center of the flower. Right? And it says, which of these flowers do you recognize? Do you know their names? And we know daffodil, and pansy, and tulip, and rose. That could really be anything. It's probably a geranium and a daisy. I don't know what these two are supposed to be. They say that flowers aren't only beautiful to look at and to smell, but that to birds and insects, they taste good too. Is it true? Oh yes, we are delicious. Bees love our nectar. Can you find some up there? Oh yes, it's delicious juice. I will take a bit home to make my honey. Now I have a full belly. Oh, why am I all covered with dust? Because of my stamens. While you were eating, they sprinkled some pollen on you. But your pollen is stuck all over me. Oh yes, please, little bee, I have been very kind to you. Now, can you do me a favor? Bring my pollen over there and ask that flower if it wants to make more flowers with me. Right? So that's what the bees do. They go and they get the pollen from one flower and they bring it to another. Good morning, flower. That flower over there asked me if you would like to make more flowers with it, and it sends this pollen to you. Oh, yes, thank you. I would love to. Do you mind putting some pollen on my pistil? So now the bee is going to drop that onto these things. Here you go. What a strange present. What are you going to do with it? Well, I will tell you, said the flower. So the little balls of pollen go down into my pistil. And do you know what happens then? A little bit of that flower mixes with a little bit of this flower, and together they make a brand new seed. The seeds? Do you mean the seeds that will become new flowers? Yes, that's exactly what I mean. The seeds fall and make their way underground and grow into new flowers. Oh, now I understand. You flowers are so very clever. You attract us with your color and your fragrance. You offer us your sweet nectar, but for a very special reason. Without us, you could never make more flowers. Exactly. Goodbye, and thank you, dear bee. Thanks, bees. Right? Thank you, bee. Okay, so I'm going to clip in, and we're going to use our bouquets that we picked from yesterday's excursion in the garden for a science activity. So today we're going to do some dissecting. And dissecting is the science word for cutting something into pieces and looking at the parts up close so that you can sort it, so that you can observe it, and so that you can learn more about what it is you are looking at. So we're going to do some dissection, and we're going to sort out different flower parts and pieces. Okay, so I have my dissection board and I've labeled it. And when you dissect something is to take it into the smallest pieces you can. Another helpful tool to have when you do dissection, obviously you need something that is going to be cutting, but a magnifying glass is always super useful. So we're going to start out with our petals. So the petals are those colorful parts of the flowers, and as I pull this forward, we're going to put up some different kinds of petals. Some petals, like in this daisy, are very hardy. They're pretty smooth, and some petals are very delicate. So each flower is different. Now if I want to dissect the flower and take it apart, I can pull or cut the petals out. This is a brand new daisy, so they're not going to come out very easily. But you can pluck the petals out, right? So I've got my petals and my petal portion. Now the next thing is the pollen. And the pollen is that dust that you get on your fingers. It's the stuff that makes you sneeze. And a good example of a flower that makes a lot of pollen, let me see if I can get it out, is this one. This is called a lily. So I'm going to take these petals and I'll put them in my petal pile. But then I want to show you the pollen. And the pollen is what mixes. It mixes from one flower to another flower, and that's what makes a new seed. So if I pinch, can you see that? That yellow on my finger? That's the pollen. You can see it right there. Now, the pollen is made by these things. So these bumpy parts are called the anther. That's where the pollen sits. And this whole big piece is called the stamen. So when a bee goes in here to get the nectar, it brushes up against these and it gets covered in pollen. So I'm going to take my scissors, my clippers, and I'm going to clip these out. And so I can put my petals in the petal part. And you can see with these daylilies, they start to make seeds. So now we're down to this part. And this part is called the pistil. Well, the whole thing is called the pistil. And the pistil has two parts, right? It's got, so we can cut these things. Those go there. And that goes there, right? So we've got all the different parts of our flowers. We also have this part, right? This is the stem. So I can cut off the leaves and put the stem in the stem part. And then I can put the leaves in the leaf part. So you can sort your flower parts however you want. Now in the middle, the last thing it says nectar. And the nectar, let me see if this one has some, is usually wet and sticky. And it's the part that smells nice. So let's see. So if you feel it and you go down to the bottom and you like touch, like there, you'll feel it and you can smell it. It's sticky. So you can go ahead and keep cutting and using your magnifying glass to look at your parts of your flowers up close.
Be sure to come back tomorrow when we use our flowers for another science activity. Mwah!